All right, welcome everyone to another deep dive. Today we're taking a look at something I know a lot of you have been asking about, and that's raising baby chicks.
Yeah, this should be fun.
It is. A lot of people are getting into homesteading and backyard chickens, and there are some really great resources out there to help you get started.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The one we're looking at today is the Raising Baby Chicks 101 guide from Tractor Supply.
A classic.
It is. We're also going to be taking a peek at a Reddit thread from Romstead. It's called Beginner's Guide to Raising Chickens.
Sounds like a good one. Lots of practical tips in those Reddit threads.
Exactly. We're going to give you a step-by-step roadmap to raising chicks, from fluffy babies to full-grown hens.
We'll try to hit all the major points, everything from setting up the right environment to keeping them warm, what to feed them.
Hygiene.
Oh, absolutely. We'll touch on some of the common challenges you might face and how to tackle those.
Before we get started, quick reminder, if you're enjoying these deep dives, please do hit that follow button, like, and subscribe.
And don't forget to leave us a comment. Let us know what other topics you'd like us to explore.
So let's dive right in, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. The first thing the Tractor Supply Guide really emphasizes is preparation.
Makes sense. You got to be ready for those little chicks.
Exactly. You can't just bring them home and be like, okay, now what?
Nope. No, you got to have their home all set up. They call it a brooder.
Yeah, the brooder. And for those starting with a smaller flock, say 30 chicks or less, the guide suggests something pretty simple.
Oh, really? Like what?
Just a large box.
A box. Okay.
Yeah, but the walls need to be at least 18 inches high. You don't want any escapees.
Ah, I see. Those little chicks can be surprisingly good at jumping.
They can. And you want to put the box in a draft-free area, away from any pets.
Right, you don't want the cat thinking they're a new snack or the dog wanting to play a little too rough.
Exactly. And they recommend a screen or a towel to cover the top. Keeps those jumpers in and curious pets out.
Smart. Now, what about if you're thinking bigger? Like more than 30 chicks?
Well, for larger flocks, they suggest using a metal stock tank. Those big galvanized tubs?
Ah, yeah. Turbo.
Exactly. Put it in an enclosed outbuilding, gives them plenty of room, and the guide specifically warns against using plastic bins.
Really? Why is that?
The heat lamp, which is essential for keeping the chicks warm, can melt the plastic.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be a huge fire hazard. Definitely don't want that.
Now, space is another big factor. The guide says each chick needs about half a square foot for the first 2 weeks.
That makes sense. They got to be able to move around a bit.
Then, since they grow so fast, you've got to double that to a full square foot per bird after those 2 weeks.
So it's important to plan for that growth from the get-go.
Absolutely. All right, so you've got your brooder set up. Now it's time to think about keeping those little chicks warm.
Yeah, that's crucial, especially when they're really young and haven't developed their full feathers yet.
They're still used to the warmth of the egg. The guide recommends a temperature of 95 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit at the bottom of the brooder.
Wow, that's pretty toasty. How do you even maintain that kind of heat?
They suggest using a brooder lamp, preferably with a red bulb. It needs to be securely clipped to one side of the brooder.
I see, so not right in the middle. Why is that?
It creates what they call a temperature gradient. That means one side of the brooder is warmer, and it gradually cools down towards the other side.
Clever. So the chicks can choose the temperature they're most comfortable with.
Exactly. If they're all huddled under the lamp, they're probably too cold. You might need to lower it or get a higher wattage bulb.
And if they're all hanging out at the edges, away from the lamp, they're too hot and you need to raise it.
Exactly. It's all about observing their behavior and making adjustments.
Makes sense. Speaking of adjustments, what about bedding, food, and water?
Ah, the essentials. The guide recommends lining the brooder with newspaper first.
Newspaper. Interesting. Why newspaper?
It makes cleaning up the droppings a lot easier. You just roll up the paper and toss it. Then you put a layer of plain shavings on top, about 2 to 3 inches deep.
So the newspaper is just for easy cleanup.
Right. And it's really important to cover it with the shavings or some other absorbent material like chopped straw or oat hulls.
Why is that?
Plain newspaper is too slippery, and chicks can develop leg problems if they're on it for too long. It's called spraddle leg.
I see. So those shavings provide traction and help their little legs develop properly.
Exactly. Now, for food and water, you'll need separate containers. Keep them clean and free from droppings.
Hygiene is key with these little guys.
Absolutely. The guide even recommends a specific type of waterer called a chick fountain.
Chick fountain.
Yeah, it prevents spills and keeps the bedding dry. Open dishes or bowls can get messy really quickly.
I can imagine. So what about the food? What do they eat?
You'll need a chick starter feed, and it needs to have around 20% protein. If you're raising broilers, which are the chickens raised for meat, you'll want a feed with 24% protein.
Wow, that's a lot of protein.
Yeah, they need it for all that growing they're doing. And then around 8 to 10 weeks, you transition them to a grower feed, which has 18 to 19% protein.
Okay, so their diet changes as they get older. Now, I know sometimes chicks can get into a bit of mischief.
They can. The guide talks about a common issue: chicks picking at each other.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that. Why do they do that?
It can be a sign of stress. Overcrowding or poor ventilation can be a trigger. They might start pecking at each other's feathers, especially around the tail, wings, or neck.
So good ventilation in the brooder is important.
Really important. And if it continues even after you've addressed those issues, the guide recommends talking to a vet.
Good advice. Better safe than sorry. The guide also mentioned something about roosting.
Yeah, even baby chicks have that instinct to get up off the ground.
Really? I didn't know that.
They do. So the guide suggests providing them with low perches, like roosting poles or even a stack of bricks. Gives them a safe place to rest.
Smart. I bet they like that. And what about getting them outside? When can they start exploring the great outdoors?
Once they start developing their feathers and the weather is warm enough, the guide says you can start giving them supervised outdoor time in a secure pen.
Sounds fun for them.
It is. They even recommend giving them a tray of sand for dust bathing.
Dust bathing, what's that?
It's a natural behavior for chickens. They roll around in the dust to clean their feathers and get rid of parasites.
Huh, that's interesting. I never knew that.
They really are fascinating creatures. And one last thing the guide emphasizes is hygiene.
Oh, yeah, that's super important.
It is. Salmonella germs can be present in poultry droppings and even on the birds themselves, even if they look healthy.
So you always need to wash your hands after handling them or anything in their environment.
Absolutely. And avoid touching your mouth before washing your hands. Especially important to supervise young children around chicks.
Definitely. You don't want anyone getting sick. Now, the guide does mention what to do as your chicks grow up.
Yeah, around 6 weeks, if the weather's good, you'll want to start thinking about moving them to a proper hen house.
And there's a whole lot to consider there. Coop size, predator protection.
Maybe we can do a deep dive on that sometime.
Yeah, that would be a good one. So, for all of you budding chicken keepers out there, what do you think is the most crucial thing to remember from all of this?
We've covered a lot: setting up the brooder, maintaining the right temperature, providing the proper food, water, and bedding.
And we talked about how important it is to observe your chick's behavior and address any issues early on.
Plus, the absolute necessity of good hygiene. Hopefully, this deep dive has given you the confidence to take those first steps.
We really encourage you to dive deeper into the resources we mentioned. The Tractor Supply Guide and that Reddit thread are full of helpful information.
And as you embark on this journey, think about what kind of chicken keeper you want to be. There are so many different approaches out there.
It's all about finding what works best for you and your flock.
Exactly. And remember, every chicken keeper starts somewhere. Just take it one step at a time and enjoy the ride.
It really is a rewarding experience.
It is. All right, everyone, that wraps up another deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.
See you then.